Hello YouTube, this is TJ's Two Cents. I'm TJ. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this episode, we'll be doing another episode about my life in foster. I believe this is either chapter 6 or 7. I will put the appropriate description in the title below. But let's go ahead and get started. On the last episode, we talked about the Baines and the cottages again. I was only at the cottages for a relatively short period of time, probably for about the ranges about a month, and then I ended up going to another group home called the Shelter. Now this was located in Lawrence, Kansas. I don't know if they're still around or not because a lot of these group homes have actually shut down, where they are foster. A lot of it has changed since I was a kid, and I'm almost 30, so. But the interesting thing about this particular group home is that it was a co-ed. Is that there was only about 4 boys or teens in the whole entire home, and they was right by the staff office. The girls had the upstairs, and there was girls' rooms in the bottom stairs. And like I said before, this house, it was co-ed, so there were both boys and girls. And of course, there's going to be a lot of drama going on there, so. It was kind of similar to when I was at the cottages the first time, where C4 was also a co-ed group home. And there was a lot of drama in that house, too, in that situation, too. I don't know what all, behind the, teenage stuff that went on behind the scenes, because I was only about 11 at the time, and I really wasn't interested or cared about any of that teenage stuff. And I'll get into a moment about what I was talking about with those teenage stuff. So many things happened at this placement. I caught in including a lot of my first time experiences. For the most part, I did okay at this placement. Okay, I have no idea why it's like that. But anyways, I got along pretty well at this placement. And this was the first time that I was actually more immersed with the opposite sex. And then it kind of helped me realize, I'd rather have gal friends instead of guy friends. Because I tend to get along with women more than men. And I still like that today. And yes, guys and girls can be just friends. Because it can happen. Just don't let religion or something say that it's primal instinct that men and women can't be just friends. That they're eventually going to want to sleep with each other. That's just a bunch of bullcrap. If you want me to get into that topic in a later video, let me know. But when I've gotten done, I start settling, and I shortly made a few new friends with 2 of the female residents. My friends were called Cynthia and Melissa. Both of the females were older by 2 to 4 years. I'm pretty sure, I know I was 14 at that time. Cynthia was the youngest at 16, and I think Melissa was 18. I'm not entirely sure. It could be the other way around. Both of the girls kind of helped me understand how things worked in the group home by telling me about the allowances, weekly contest for the cleanest room and the most chores, and it was kind of interesting because the contest for the cleanest room and the most chores involved gift certificates to McDonald's. And this was still when McDonald's still had the paper gift certificates where you get like a $5. They were called McDonald's bucks, I guess. And there was legal tender at McDonald's, and let's say you got on the dollar menu $4 worth of items, and there was change back, they would give you actual change. And I ended up winning both the cleanest room and the most chores, so I ended up getting like those $10 gift certificates every week I was there, and that was extremely fun. We also went on activities on a regular basis, like going shopping or swimming was the few things. I remember going to a bookstore or something like that and seeing like a really old, like Grand Theft Auto 2 or the complete set for that time era on display for sale, and I was like, ooh, I wish I can get that. I don't remember what bookstore it was, but it wasn't Lawrence, so. But I guess the hardest thing was keeping the cleanest room is that my roommate didn't really pick up after himself most of the time, so it was kind of hard because it was a joint effort to keep your cleanest room at the time, so I'll kind of get on to him about that. And after being there for less than a month, I ended up dating Melissa, who I believe was about ready to turn 18 at the time. We ended up making out in certain spots within the house. Making out was not my first like actual experience, like sexual experience with females, because I ended up having my first kiss, I think when I was 10 in the 4th grade, in her parents' house or whatever. I don't remember exactly when, but I know I was around 10 years old. Yeah, I ended up going second base with Melissa and Cynthia and making out with both of them. And then we end up never like actually doing it again because somebody actually ended up getting caught. And it was another guy around the same age as Cynthia. And I remember that situation because the group home had to call the cops, and they ended up questioning every single one of us, which I'm pretty sure could have been illegal because my worker, I don't know if my worker was notified before I was questioned, since the group homes technically wasn't my legal guardians, but I have no idea. But I just remember the law enforcement questioning us, and the boy in question ended up getting transferred to the other group home that the shelter ran. That was all boys. So, but no charges were actually filed against anyone. The weeks preceding, I ended up having fun at the local water park, and another, because I remember that water park that I guess I was somehow kind of like embarrassed or whatever, because I was trying to like impress the girls that I was dating or whatever, and it's like, Josh, you don't need to do that. And then another part is that the staff actually brought an old Nintendo or NES that brought back a lot of memories at that time, because I never really gave up hope on my biological father, because I still had a fantasy at that time that we would get reunited, things would go back to the way that was. And that fantasy still held on till shortly after I was 18. I made out with Cynthia at that time, and then probably around that time, like this is all, I don't know exactly when each situation happened, like each part of the memory, they're kind of all grouped together. But another thing that happened with me at the group home in Lawrence, that I made out with Cynthia at the bottom of the basement, at the bottom of the stairs, so we would know if staff was coming or not. Also, at that time, probably could have lost my virginity if I really had tried, but I was kind of like still 14 at the time, was kind of nervous and like was kind of nervous and didn't know really what to do. And then, of course, Melissa found out a few days later and got upset with me. But I guess the weirdest thing that she wasn't entirely upset with me. She actually forgave me because I think, like, even though we did kind of date, it wasn't really like dating. I guess, so to speak, when I think about it now, is because, I guess she was actually in the process of leaving the group home because she was about ready to age out of the foster care system. So that was probably another main reason why. So I guess she was really upset with me though because she was in the process of moving out, so there was like really no long-term commitment. But of course I felt bad, but. And then I just mentioned that as soon as me and Melissa made up, I found out she was moving out of the home into her own place since she was a system. I ended up missing her, and I was actually kind of depressed about it for a while. And some of the other gals noticed it, including Cynthia. And of course, I said I was going to be fine, like most guys do, because most guys kind of keep their feelings bottled up and don't really talk about it. But I kind of do talk about my feelings. It may not be in person, but I'd rather do it over text or something like that, or I'm not trying to hide behind a screen. It's just easier for me to kind of talk about certain topics behind a screen because it provides a written form of conversation. So if anything happens, I can have that in my defense. And then after a week about Melissa moving out, we had got to new girl Rebecca. And Rebecca was more my age and probably was a little bit better looking. And she was the only gal at the time that I remember that was a little bit more blunt than the others. I overheard that a conversation that Rebecca had with one of her parents. I think it was her mom. The thing that was disturbing the most that she used the term lisp. I never heard that term before, and I took kind of great offense about it, and I asked what that word meant. So she told me it's just somebody that has a speech problem. Even after I still felt like crap. But you can probably realize now that I have a lisp. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. I just have a lisp. And then things went downhill. Went completely downhill from there. Then another incident about residents having inappropriate relationships with each other, because there was technically supposed to be no dating within the group home. And after staff had got done talking about us, Rebecca ended up walking up to her room before she had went up the stairs. She blurted out loud that we couldn't date anymore. I was like, and of course I denied everything because I did not want to get in trouble. And after that day, I lost respect for her, and since every resident knew if someone wanted to go out with each other, they had to keep her from staff, or the whole house could be put in segregation. What I mean by that is that staff knew that the teenagers were dating, and the teenagers kind of dated among themselves, like guys and girls. But we didn't openly talk about it or say that we were dating. We didn't openly tell staff about it because there was like no dating policy, because I just otherwise I'll probably call the cops again. And the rest of my stay at the shelter seemed to go by pretty fast. I ended up leaving the placement and moved to a better placement that I actually liked, and ended up staying for a little over a year if you kind of combined it all together. And I'll explain a bit more about it in the next chapter or video. But the placement that I was going to was called the Community Youth Home. And I don't think that placement is around any longer. And I don't think that place is around any longer because when I tried to look them up about a month or two ago, that I couldn't find any information about them. But my foster care workers knew that there was a reason why the Topeka was more beneficial to me. That I ended up going back there and aging out of there, out of foster care from Topeka. So that's the end of chapter 7 or chapter 6. I have to double check. But that's the end of this chapter. I know this chapter was kind of short than the rest though, but there was a lot that happened at the shelter in Lawrence, Kansas, to where I felt I had to dedicate a whole entire video to this specific chapter. Now, I hope I can get in contact with Cynthia again because she was kind of a great gal, because I think a couple years later, I don't know, it was maybe, I don't know, but I ended up seeing Cynthia again. I think it was my senior year of high school when I noticed again. I think it might have been when I was living, I don't necessarily, I think it was my senior year of high school at my last placement that I was in. But I ended up seeing Cynthia again, and she was in an all-girls group home, and I actually felt kind of bad for her because the other girls were making fun of her because she said that she was hearing and seeing things. So I don't know what's going on with her. I kind of wish I can get back in contact with her, making sure, just kind of catching up with her, because kind of don't want to leave her with, like, in my mind with a bad memory. And Melissa, I ended up getting in contact with her shortly after foster care, and I think she had a husband at the time, and she ended up having to take care of him full time because of a brain injury. So, anyways, in the next chapter, we'll be talking about the community youth home. And this may end up being a longer video than the rest because I was there for about a year. So there's a lot had happened in that year. So stay tuned for the next episode. I'll post, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. Comment down below if you have any questions, or inbox me, and I'll be greatly happy to appreciate to any of your comments. So again, thank you for watching my YouTube. This is TJ Studios, and I'm signing out.